This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV.
Circle Back Friday is about return, not repetition. It's about what happens when time passes, perspective changes, and people come back carrying more than they left with. Some stories don't end when they fall apart. They pause. And when they resume, they don't sound the same. Because some people inside them aren't the same anymore. Today's story isn't about starting over. It's about coming full circle.
BBTV's igniting, turn the volume up. Yeah, the whole world's invited, from the gravel road to the neon dream. She built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be Rousey, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it.
Well, hey, y'all. Welcome in. Y'all, Fridays are about perspective, okay? Around here, especially. Not the rush of beginnings, not the heat of conflict, but what time does to a story once the noise settles. Circle Back Friday exists because not everything ends when it breaks, right? Some things just go quiet long enough for people to, grow into who they need to be. I'm still taking my time with my voice, okay? Because y'all can probably tell it's still a little shaky. And I appreciate y'all letting the show breathe a little more this week. Happy New Year's plus, sister. Hi, Niecy. I'm so happy to see you, honey. I hope you're having a wonderful new year already. I know I am. I'm alive. I took a deep breath this morning and I'm feeling good. So stories like this one today deserves patience anyway. Okay, today's episode is built around one letter, and the letter isn't about nostalgia or wishing things stayed the same. It's about distance, about lessons learned the hard way. Oh, good. No complaints on the second day of the year is always good. It gives me a good sign, I think. So, about lessons learned the hard way, and about what it makes or it means to return without pretending nothing happened in between. So before we talk about the music, before we talk about the reunion, we're going to start where we always do, with the letter. And yes, I'm using some graphics again. You know I gotta save this voice so I can get this year out of here. What y'all think of these glasses, though? Aren't they cute? I know, right? They're all crooked on my head and everything, but as crooked as I am. Hi, how are you? Gideon Perez, is that what your name is? I hope I said that right. Glad to have you. Thank you for being here. So, okay, I'm going to start with our letter for the day, and we got a new guest. You're going to love this one.
Out a few different voices. Let me know your favorite in the comments.
Dear B, I've been thinking about what it really means to come back, not just to a place, but to a story.
Some bands break up and never really leave. Others disappear completely.
And then there are a few who actually step away long enough to understand what went wrong, what mattered, and what was worth saving.
And then there are a few who actually step away long enough to understand what went wrong, what mattered, and what was worth saving. Those are the stories that always stay with me.
That's why I'm writing about Journey. For a long time, their story felt unfinished. Voices changed.
Members came and went. The music was still loved, but the center felt missing.
What struck me wasn't just the loss. It was the patience.
The refusal to force a version of the band that didn't feel right. When they finally circled back, it didn't feel like a reset or a cash grab. It felt earned. Like people who had lived enough life to know what they were bringing back for them and what they were leaving behind. It means honoring what was without being trapped by it. And it means showing up changed.
That's not easy. Returning after distance means facing the past honestly instead of rewriting it.
Not pretending you're the same people you were when everything first started. I'd love to hear you talk about that kind of return. Not the headlines or the debates. Sometimes the strongest move isn't pushing forward, it's stepping back until the timing is right. Some stories don't need to end cleanly to be complete. Sometimes they just need time.
All right, welcome back. That's a heck of a letter, don't you think? Hey, Skull baby, how you doing? I know you're still out there. Where is my face? My face is right here. I've had a little trouble with my voice lately. I've been doing this show for 3-4 months now and doing it every day, and my voice was just tired. I had to take a little break, but I'm back now, stronger than ever. And we're going to talk about more music this time because, y'all, music is my blood. That's all there is to it. It's in my blood. Not that I can't do anything about it. So, before we get into this, I'm going to change it up just a tad, because coming back isn't the same as starting over. And how many times I've come back if you've been with me for a while. I have had to come back quite a few times. And that's okay because I'm getting there. But starting over erases, right? Coming back remembers. Today's letter isn't asking whether reunions work. It's asking what changes when people give themselves enough distance to understand what actually really matters, right? Some bands fall apart because they rush growth. Others survive because they step away long enough to let perspective do the work. So time doesn't fix everything, but it does clarify things. It shows which part of a story was built on habit and which parts were built on connection. So, circle back stories aren't about pretending nothing went wrong. They're about returning without the need to win old arguments or relive old roles. So, when artists come back wiser than they left, the music changes, not because the sound is different, but because the intention is. To understand why some returns feel earned and others feel forced, we have to start before the reunion ever became possible. Back when distance was necessary and silence did more good than noise. This is where the circle begins. Patty friend, hi honey. Happy New Year to you too. Love you, doll. Thank you for being here. Okay, so I do have a video. It's a little shorter this time because I want to do a little more answering to these letters myself, but we're going to do the video first. And as always, we're going to take a little break in there because sometimes I have to do the potty dance. And I am over 50, so my ladies, you know what we mean. So here we go with our first video.
Was even a possibility. Journey existed in a prolonged state of fracture that couldn't be solved by momentum alone. Success had arrived early and loudly, but sustainability proved far more elusive. As the years passed, the distance between what the band represented publicly and what it could support internally grew harder to ignore. At the center of this fracture was instability, not just of lineup, but of identity. Changing voices, shifting dynamics, and unresolved tensions made it increasingly difficult for the band to operate as a cohesive unit. The music still mattered deeply to fans, but behind the scenes, continuity was slipping. What once felt like chemistry began to feel like obligation. This phase is often summarized too quickly as decline, but that framing misses the point. The band wasn't failing creatively. They were losing alignment, and alignment, once fractured, cannot be repaired through effort alone. It requires space. For Journey, that space arrived not as a planned pause, but as necessity. Touring became inconsistent, expectations outpaced reality. The version of the band that audiences remembered no longer matched what could be reliably delivered. Instead of forcing a compromised continuation, the story slowed, and eventually, it stopped. That stopping mattered. Distance allowed the weight of unresolved issues to surface clearly. Without the pressure of constant output, it became obvious which problems were circumstantial and which were structural. Silence, uncomfortable as it was, provided clarity that constant motion had obscured. That stopping mattered. Distance allowed the weight of unresolved issues to surface clearly. Without the pressure of constant output, it became obvious which problems were circumstantial and which were structural. Silence, uncomfortable as it was, provided clarity that constant motion had obscured. This is the part of circle-back stories that often goes uncelebrated. Stepping away isn't dramatic. It doesn't feel triumphant. It feels unfinished. For fans, it can feel like loss. For artists, it often feels like relief mixed with grief. But without that pause, return becomes imitation rather than renewal. Journey's separation created the conditions for perspective. Members lived outside the band's shadow. Identity untangled from expectation. The music existed without the constant demand to reproduce its former self. That distance wasn't abandonment, it was preservation. What makes this segment important is that it establishes why reunion couldn't have happened sooner. Any attempt to circle back without understanding the fracture would have recreated the same problems. Time wasn't avoidance, it was preparation. Before the circle could close, it had to break cleanly enough for reflection to do its work. And in that quiet stretch between eras, the band's future was unknowable, which is exactly what made an honest return possible later. This is where Circle Back Friday really begins. Not with reunion announcements, but with the courage to stop when continuing would have meant losing the point altogether. Time does what momentum cannot. It slows the noise enough for perspective to form. For Journey, the years away from constant output weren't empty, they were instructive. Distance stripped away urgency and replaced it with clarity about what had truly mattered and what had only felt important in the moment. Outside the pressure of touring cycles and expectations, individual members were able to reconnect with the music without the weight of maintaining a brand. This mattered. When identity is tied too tightly to success, it becomes difficult to distinguish between love for the work and obligation to the audience. Time away loosened that knot. Perspective also reframed conflict. Arguments that once felt permanent began to look contextual. Not erased, not forgotten, but understood. The passage of time didn't change what happened, it changed how it was interpreted. That shift is essential for any genuine return. Without it, reunion becomes repetition. Another important transformation occurred quietly: humility. Distance has a way of rebalancing ego. Without the constant reinforcement of applause, artists confront themselves more honestly. For Journey, this meant acknowledging both the strengths and limitations of the past without needing to defend either. This phase wasn't about plotting a comeback. It was about living full lives outside the band. Families grew, priorities shifted, the urgency to prove something faded. What replaced it was discernment, the ability to recognize whether returning would add meaning or simply reopen wounds. What makes this segment significant is that the idea of circling back didn't emerge from nostalgia. It emerged from readiness. Readiness doesn't announce itself loudly. It arrives as quiet agreement that the reasons for leaving no longer control the future. Time also clarified what couldn't be recreated, and that honesty prevented false expectations. The goal was no longer to restore a moment frozen in memory. It was to honor the spirit of what once existed while allowing it to live in a new context. For many bands, distance creates myth. For Journey, it created discernment. They didn't rush back because the audience wanted it. They waited until the conditions were right to return without pretending the years in between hadn't shaped them. This is where circle back stories either fail or succeed. The difference lies in whether time was used for reflection or simply endured. In Journey's case, time became a teacher. It exposed what was essential and what was expendable. By the end of this period, the idea of return no longer felt like pressure. It felt like possibility, not obligation, not nostalgia, just the quiet recognition that something unfinished could now be revisited honestly. And with that recognition, the circle began to move toward closure, not because the past demanded it, but because the present could finally support it. Circled back, the most important choice they made wasn't who stood on stage. It was what they refused to pretend. The return didn't arrive as a correction of history or a denial of fracture. It arrived as an acceptance that the past had happened, mattered, and would not be edited for comfort. That restraint changed everything. Rather than chasing a moment frozen in time, the band approached the reunion with a different question. What still works now? That shift sounds subtle, but it's decisive. It moves a reunion away from nostalgia and toward relevance. It acknowledges that growth doesn't reverse, it accumulates. The return was built on boundaries that hadn't existed before. Expectations were clarified, roles were respected, the urgency to dominate charts or reclaim a peak was replaced by a steadier goal: coherence. The music didn't need to prove itself, it needed to belong to the present moment. What's striking about this phase is how calm it feels compared to earlier eras. The drama that once drove momentum no longer powered the machine. Instead, discipline and mutual respect took its place. That doesn't make for explosive headlines, but it creates sustainability, and sustainability is what circle backstories depend on. Audiences felt the difference immediately. The return didn't demand belief, it earned trust. Performances carried confidence without desperation. The music sounded familiar without feeling trapped. That balance is rare, and it only happens when artists allow the past to inform the present without controlling it. This segment highlights a critical truth about reunion. Success isn't measured by how closely something resembles what it used to be. It's measured by whether it can exist honestly in its current form. Journey's return worked because it respected the distance that made it possible. Importantly, not everything was restored, and that restraint mattered. The band didn't promise permanence or perfection. They allowed the return to be what it was: a continuation, not a correction. That humility protected the music from the weight of expectation. By choosing to return without rewriting, Journey avoided the trap that derails so many reunions. They didn't try to win old arguments or reclaim lost ground. They focused on presence, on showing up as they were, not as they once had been. This phase represents the quiet success of Circle Back Friday. It proves that return doesn't have to erase fracture to be meaningful. It only has to be honest enough to hold what came before without collapsing under it. With the return complete, the circle didn't snap shut. It settled, and in that settling, the story found its footing again, not as a revival, but as a continuation shaped by time, perspective, and restraint. Full circle doesn't mean ending where you started. It means arriving somewhere with enough understanding to carry the past without being owned by it. For Journey, the power of their return wasn't in restoring what once was, but in demonstrating that growth can coexist with memory. By the time the band settled into this later phase, the urgency that once fractured them had dissolved. What remained was clarity, about why the music mattered, why the distance had been necessary, and why coming back didn't require pretending those years apart never happened. The circle didn't close by snapping shut, it closed by widening. Legacy, here, isn't measured by whether the band recaptured a specific era. It's measured by coherence. The music makes sense in context. The return feels proportional to the time that passed. Nothing is rushed, nothing is forced. That balance is what gives the story its quiet sense of completion. What's notable is how the return reframed the earlier fracture. The break isn't remembered as failure anymore, it's understood as part of the process that allowed maturity to take hold. Distance becomes not a gap to apologize for, but a chapter that gave meaning to everything that followed. This is why circle back stories resonate when they're done right. They don't erase conflict, they integrate it. They don't promise permanence, they offer presence. Journey's later chapter doesn't try to outshine the past, it stands beside it with respect. For audiences, that honesty creates trust. There's no demand to believe in a perfect reunion. There's only an invitation to appreciate a continuation shaped by experience. The music doesn't carry the weight of nostalgia alone, it carries perspective. What endures most from this phase isn't the spectacle of return, but the example it sets. It shows that stepping away can be an act of preservation, that patience can deepen meaning, and that coming back doesn't require undoing what time has taught you. Full circle, in this sense, isn't about repetition. It's about resolution without denial. It's about acknowledging that stories can pause, evolve, and resume without losing integrity. Journey's story lands here not as a restart, but as a reaffirmation of why the music mattered in the first place. And that's the quiet gift of Circle Back Friday. It reminds us that some stories don't need a dramatic ending to feel complete. Sometimes they just need time, honesty, and the willingness to return differently than they left. The circle doesn't close because everything is finished. It closes because everything finally makes sense.
She came from the quiet storms, built a fire from the ground, turned a whisper to a warning. Now her voice shakes the town. Every setback was a lesson, every doubt became a key, unlocking something bigger. That's the rise of Boss B. When the lights go low, her vision hits high. She built a whole damn network off a promise and a try. Every sunrise, every moment, she's stacking legacy. This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback, the storm in the stream, crafting stories out of heartbeats, making visions out of dreams. Got thunder in the hustle, got a voice that cuts clean. Every mic she touches turns the power unseen. So let further spin the numbers, let the views rise slow or fast. Boss B doesn't measure wins by echoes of the past. This moment is a pivot, this season's history. Bow down to the founder of the BBTV dynasty. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's got fire in the head, it's got truth in the frame, got a heart that won't retire and a gift you can't name. Every loop, every letter, every dream she sets free, it's a love note to the world sign. Boss B. And the world keeps watching as the numbers climb, but she's counting all the moments, not the dollar signs. From the late night grind to the daylight scene, she's building something bigger than the algorithm's dream. Boss B rising, BBTV shining. Her story's rewriting, a legacy in real time. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. BBTV, where the stories breathe. BBTV, where the dreamers believe. Boss B rising, watch her take her place. This is BBTV, this is her grace.
Join Boss B for Ask a Bee Monday through Friday, 12 noon Central Standard Time and Jukebox Journey every Saturday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Yeah, mute button. I'll never get over that newbie crap. So when people talk about Journey's story, especially the return, there's a tendency to compress the middle, to treat the years of distance like a gap that just needs to be bridged so we can get back to the satisfying part, The reunion, the applause, the sense that everything eventually worked out, but that compression misses the most important truth of the story, which is that nothing about the return makes sense unless you sit with that, with the distance actually did. Okay, because distance wasn't empty time. It wasn't a pause button. It wasn't inactivity. It was pressure released slowly enough for reality to surface. Now, before any reunion could be honest, the band had to confront the fact that momentum had carried them further than alignment could support. Success came early and loudly. And when success comes that way, it creates a strange imbalance. On the outside, everything looks like forward motion. On the inside, you're still building the scaffolding while the building is already occupied. Expectations grow faster than systems. Identity gets tied to output before it's fully formed. And when that happens, the cracks don't show all at once. No, they spread quietly. What fractured wasn't talent. What fractured wasn't really relevance either. It was coherence. Lineup changes, shifting dynamics, unresolved tensions. Those things don't automatically destroy a band, but they do erode the sense of shared center. And once that center starts drifting, everything becomes harder to hold together. Decisions feel a lot heavier and communication becomes strained. What used to feel like chemistry starts to feel like responsibility. You get tired, you get put in a rut, basically, is what it feels like, you know? Oh, Patty, honey, thank you. Oh, sweetheart, you're a doll. I love you, girl. Look at this. Patty is an amazing friend. You know, I'm going to stop this just for a minute because Big Jack and I have been talking about this, and we just want to tell you, Patty friend, that we know you are our biggest supporter, and we want you to know how much we appreciate that and love you for it. And that's as a channel, but Patty, as a friend, honey, can I tell you, I look forward to it when you walk in my channel. I do. And when I don't see you, I know you're busy, honey, but I still just, I love you so much. I just wonder about you. If I don't see you within a couple of days, then I start getting worried. But I know you're a busy woman, and just, I love you, honey. Just know that I love you so much. You are a bright light in my day, sweetheart. A very bright light in my day. And I just need you to know that. You're very welcome, honey. Thank you so much for so much support. And I'm not talking about the money, honey. What I'm talking about is I feel a friend walk in the room when you say hello. Okay? Please know that. Okay, I better get back to this. I might cry because I'm just happy to have friends, you know? Thank you. Thank you. That means more to me than anything because you guys, you know, I've been up and down this YouTube carnival ride is what it is. I've been in and out of monetization. And yes, I finally have that back. And yes, I am finally doing what I'm supposed to be doing. See, the reason I lost it was my own fault. I figured out in record time, 4 months, how to get monetized. What I did not figure out in 4 months was how to stay monetized. You can't just, you know, hey, here, I'll pop up a whole bunch of stuff and think that it's okay. Bertha, the algorithm, y'all know that's who I call. She is picky. Anyway, it was my mistake, but I fixed it. And then I want it back. So we're good. But the thing about this is I have been in and out, problem after problem. But I'm okay with that. When I first got here, my whole intention was anybody that helps me out, I'm taking them with me as far as I can go. And that is exactly what the iron sharpening iron universe has done for me. And that's why I will never, ever walk away. They have to shove me out the door and lock it in my face. Not that he would. I don't believe that. Don't get me wrong. Big Jack is amazing. So is Davina and Walt. And this whole experience has been a dream come true. And I've heard Jack say that this has become a dream come true. And Davina has said it. And you know what? Walt is right there with us, right beside us every step of the way. And I feel good because I have so much more in 2026 already. And it's only the second day than I had in 2025 because not only do I have friends, I mean, I have friends, okay? Don't get me wrong. But people that bring to my life and allow me to bring to theirs, that's a friend to me. So when Patty says, I appreciate all the quality work you all do, that means exactly what you said and all the world to me, because that is what we are trying to do here. We just, you know what? There's a lot of people out there that like to work by themselves. And yeah, a lot of them, they get up there, they get to going really good. But let me tell you something. It is so much easier when you have a community and a family within this place, because I'm totally going off topic here and we will get back to Journey. I'm so sorry, but I really want to say this. It's so important. Big Jack, Davina, Walt, and I have so many wonderful things going and about to start. Okay. Amazing, wonderful things. You're right, Patty. Remember, I told you that you all are a brand now. I know anything that is coming from this universe is good and has been vetted by the best people. See, there you go. And this is why we love you, Patty, because you see us. And that's the important part of YouTube, isn't it? To be seen. You know, and pardon the expression, but all of us attention, you know the word. I don't want to say it on YouTube and get in trouble, but it starts with the W H, you know. Us attention getters. This is to pacify some of that energy that, you know, some people, they like a lot of attention and they don't know the way to get that attention without being more detrimental to their own cause, right? So this is what they do. They get on YouTube. They make videos. That's what we do, okay? Look, I'll be honest. I love attention. Always have, always will. Nobody's ever going to stop me. Nope. I love attention. I don't look the part. I don't feel the part, but you know what? I am the part because I'm okay with it. That's the deal. I have ADHD. No, I've not been formally diagnosed. No, I've never taken medications for it. But when I have 3 children that have it, and I know I've been through the tests, it's kind of obvious. Okay. But I don't like medicine. I don't like putting that junk in me. Look, I'm all over the place now. My point is, I come here to make other people feel better because that's what makes me feel better. You know, counselors, they get those jobs. Shh. Mo, 1 second, please. Sorry, dogs again. I just can't get them to stop. It's like I get to talking on here and they go off just because they know. I know they know. Davina, she can put hers outside and they'll be quiet for a minute. I can't put mine outside. They will come through those doors. I have a little bitty toy chihuahua and a 95-pound Catahoula blue heeler mix. And these two The little one thinks he's big. The big one thinks he's little. And they go nuts. Anyway. All right. So my point here being, now that I've gone 10 different points on this one, this is ADHD in a nutshell right here. I have pretty much a script because I can't stay focused. Lovely me. Anyway, my point is, you can do things by yourself. You really can. But you know you can do it better and faster if you have more than one thought process. And don't try and think that you can have all those thought processes at once. That is the problem with ADHD, because our brain doesn't allow us to stop that process. Okay. We process way better. You gave them the look. Yeah, I did. You saw that, Patty? Deuteronomy 18:10. You know, let's see there. Let me read this for you. Deuteronomy 18:10. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are abomination unto the Lord. Okay, Sir Max. I read it. I see what you're saying. And you're right. That is in Deuteronomy. I'm not a witch. Let's put it that way. I'm not an enchanter. Look at me. What I am is a person sharing her life and her experiences. And there is nothing wrong with that. Yes, tarot is considered a form of divination, which is the practice of seeking insight into the future or hidden things through supernatural means. Yes, you're correct. I'm not reading tarot cards, though. I'm sorry. I guess I don't understand why you're sharing that with us. But I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and go on with my show. If you can give me some kind of explanation why you're putting this in my chat, no problem. Otherwise, gotcha. Okay. Back to Journey, because, yeah. So what used to feel like chemistry starts to feel like responsibility in a band, right? And responsibility, when it replaces connection, it eventually turns into obligation, correct? So that's where Journey found themselves still meaningful to fans, still powerful musically, but increasingly misaligned internally. And alignment, once broken, it can't be repaired by effort alone, right? And that's what I'm talking about here, especially with the iron sharpening iron universe. Everything is starting to align. Now, if you don't know what the iron sharpening iron universe is, let me just tell you, it's not part of a tarot reading clan or any kind of divination. What it is, iron sharpening iron. It is a universe of like-minded folks that believe that helping each other is the way to go. One, iron sharpens iron. Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Together, we are making this a universe. And I am blessed, and I'm just going to say to you, I'm absolutely blessed to be able to produce for this whole universe. That's what I do. I'm a producer and I do my shows. Okay. So alignment, once broken, can't be repaired by effort alone, right? You can rehearse harder, tour longer, push through, but effort without alignment just delays the reckoning. It really doesn't prevent it. So when the story slowed and eventually stopped, That stopping mattered more than people often acknowledge. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't drive with clarity or certainty. It arrived because continuing would have meant pretending that the structure could hold what it no longer could. So touring became inconsistent, not because of lack of will, but because reality refused to cooperate with expectation. The version of the band audiences remembered no longer matched what could be reliably delivered, and forcing that gap closed would have come at no cost. So I guess that's the part of Circle Back stories that, sorry, doing too many things at once here, that doesn't get celebrated, okay? It's stepping away doesn't feel victorious. It feels unresolved, right? That's true in any situation. It feels like leaving something unfinished on the table. But for fans, it can feel like loss. And for artists, it often feels like relief tangled up with grief. Relief that pressure has eased, and sometimes that's not always, it's a relief, but it's a guilt trip too, ain't it? But it's grief that, something meaningful couldn't be sustained in its current form, plain and simple. Without that pause, return becomes imitation instead of renewal. Distance did what constant motion could not. It allowed unresolved issues to surface without being, buried under deadlines and expectations. It separated problems that were circumstantial from problems that were structural. It also forced honesty where momentum had previously allowed avoidance. Silence, uncomfortable as it was, it created clarity. So that clarity changed everything, okay? Time away, untangled identity from obligation. Members lived outside the band's shadow. The music existed without the constant demand to reproduce its former self. And that matters because you cannot return honestly to something you never fully left. So half returns create half solutions, right? They bring the same intentions back under a different name. Time also reframed conflict. Arguments that once felt permanent started to look contextual, not erased. So not excused, but understood within a broader picture. Times did not change what happened. It changed how it was interpreted. And interpretation is everything when it comes to return, right? So without that shift, reunion simply becomes repetition. Another quiet transformation took place during the distance too. Humility. Without constant applause reinforcing identity, artists, they confront themselves more directly. And, well, let's face it, ego recalibrates. Strengths and limitations become clearer without the need to defend either. That's not comfortable, but it's necessary because humility isn't about diminishing what you've done. It's about seeing it accurately, right? Importantly, this phase wasn't spent plotting a comeback. It really wasn't. It wasn't driven by nostalgia or pressure to reclaim a moment frozen in memory. Life happened outside the band. Families grew, priorities shifted, the urgency to prove something faded. What replaced it, I guess, was discernment, the ability to recognize whether returning would add meaning or simply reopen the wounds. So, readiness doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't arrive with a plan or a press release. It shows up as quiet agreement, as the sense that the reasons for leaving no longer control the future. That's when circling back becomes possible. Not because the past demands it, but because the present can support it, right? So when Journey finally returned, the most important choice they made wasn't about personal or performance. It was about restraint. They refused to rewrite the history, which, let me be the first to say, I'm so glad they did not, because that history, I can't live a day without at least one Journey song. Okay, y'all. But they didn't deny that fracture. They didn't pretend the distance hadn't cost anything. They allowed the past to remain intact, unedited for comfort. That restraint changed everything. Instead of chasing a moment frozen in time, the return was guided by a different question. What still works now? That shift sounds subtle, but it's decisive. It moves a reunion away from nostalgia and towards relevance. It acknowledges that growth doesn't reverse, it accumulates. You don't go back, you go forward carrying what you've learned. Now, boundaries existed this time, that hadn't before, and expectations were clarified. Roles were respected. The urgency to dominate or reclaim a peak was replaced with a steadier goal, coherence. The music didn't need to prove itself. It needed to belong to the present, to this moment. So audiences felt that difference immediately, okay? The return didn't demand belief. It earned trust. Performances carried confidence without desperation, and the music sounded familiar without feeling trapped. That balance is rare, and it only happens when artists allow the past to inform the present without controlling it. So not everything was restored, and that mattered. No promises of permanence, okay? No claims of perfection. The return was allowed to be what it was, a continuation, not a correction. That humility, it protected the music from the weight of expectation and allowed it to exist without being crushed by legacy. So, this is where the idea of full circle needs to be handled carefully. Full circle doesn't mean ending where you started. It doesn't mean recreating a moment or restoring an era. It means arriving somewhere with enough understanding to carry the past without being owned by it. It's pretty simple. Even though it sounds like a lot, it's pretty simple. But for Journey, the circle didn't close by snapping shut. It closed by widening. Legacy is, in this sense, isn't measured by how closely something resembles what it used to be. It's measured by coherence, by whether the story makes sense in context. Walt would love to hear that, I'll bet you. But by whether the return feels proportional to the time that passed. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. That balance, it creates completion without pretending everything is finished. The earlier fracture isn't erased in this telling, though. It's integrated. The distance isn't apologized for. It's understood as part of the process that made maturity possible. That's why the later chapter works. It doesn't outshine the past. It stands beside it with respect. And that's the deeper lesson underneath this letter, I think. So Circle Back Friday isn't about reunion announcements, okay? It's about recognizing that some stories need silence before they can speak honestly again. It's also about understanding that stepping away can be an act of preservation, that patience can deepen meaning, and that coming back, it doesn't require undoing what time has taught you. Okay? Full circle isn't repetition. It's resolution without denial. It's the ability to pause, evolve, and resume without losing integrity. Journey's story lands not as a restart, but as reaffirmation, okay, of why the music mattered and why it still does now in a truer form, even. I mean, my kids know it. The circle doesn't close because everything is finished. It closes because everything finally makes sense. I mean, I couldn't agree with that last statement more. It finally made sense. And that's the most important part for any musician or any kind of artist, I would think, or hell, to be honest, any person in life, you know? All right, let's stand this where it belongs. Circle Back Friday isn't about reunions for the sake of nostalgia, okay? Which that's what we said. It's about what time does when people actually listen to it. When you look at a story like Journey, the meaning isn't in the break or the return by themselves. It's in what changed in between. Distance wasn't failure here. It was information. It showed what couldn't be forced, what needed to be respected, and what was worth coming back for. This kind of full circle doesn't ask you to forget the past. It asks you to understand it well enough to not repeat it. I think that's why this return feels complete without pretending it's final. It's presence without pressure, memory without obligation. So listen, thanks for sitting with me with a slower story today, because this space value patience over noise. Okay. I appreciate the grace you've given me this past few weeks. Forgive me, my voice is still cracky and not great. But while I've paced my voice and let the stories do the heavy lifting this week, y'all have been really great. And thank you. I know I've only been back a couple of days, but you guys know I can't stay away from you for very long. So tomorrow is Saturday. That's Jukebox Journey. That'll be tomorrow evening, 8 p.m. Okay. Now that's Central Time. Let me put that out there. I almost forgot. Thank you, Patty. Thank you so much. Love you, honey. I do so very much. Okay. So tomorrow we'll gather our artists together and get us a really nice little show going for Jukebox Journey. You guys know I always love to do my shows, especially Jukebox Journey. But if anything in this hush, no, stop, dogs. If something in this story felt familiar, trust that timing matters, okay? And so does how you come back. All right? I will see y'all tomorrow, 8 p.m. sharp Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Y'all get back here because I've got a great show already. I love you. Y'all take care. And you know what? Enjoy your weekend. I'm going to.
How you like that?